When did I start journaling? Okay, going back. As a kid, my grandma, who was a teacher, encouraged me to write and read from an early age. And I like to believe that this set me up with a way to express myself. I remember her buying me my first real journal and the topics I wrote about as a 10-year-old. It is crazy how I still have some of the same problems. I didn't journal much until I was 17. That is when I started my bullet journaling, which was a mix of expressing my creativity, my knack for staying organized, and reflecting on text. More and more, I just needed pages to soak up my tears and capture my dreams. At the cusp of entering adulthood, my life consisted of feeling overwhelmed and needing an outlet. So I started journals that had nothing to do with aesthetic spreads and everything to do with expressing who I was and what I was feeling at that exact time. I would take these out everywhere I went, and that is the time I recognized how much journaling means to me and how much it helps me. Let me break down what kind of journals I keep today and how they're changing my life. But before that, I would like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Now, journaling has definitely given me tools to understand myself better, but I believe it also helps me determine the questions about how I think and my beliefs that I need help with beyond self-reflection. So with BetterHelp, you can talk to your licensed therapist in secure phone or video sessions. You can also message your therapist anytime and exchange unlimited messages with them, and this all in a private online environment, meaning you can have your therapy wherever and whenever you are most comfortable with. I personally feel extremely overwhelmed with the whole process of finding the right therapist for my needs, but BetterHelp truly makes this a more than bearable process. I basically just have to fill out a questionnaire that helps me assess my specific needs, and then I can get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. I also appreciate that you can request a new therapist at any time at no additional charge. Furthermore, BetterHelp has a network of over 20,000 therapists with a broad range of expertise that can offer me help that may not be available to me in my area. So if you are interested, you can join the over 2 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist, and you can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Yusuf. That is betterhelp.com/Yusuf. Thank you again to BetterHelp, and let's move on with the video. I am fascinated by blunt thoughts and capturing emotions, but even more so with reading them back. And for this reason, I keep my bedside journal. I would also describe this as a no filter, no expectations, off the rails journal. This journal is always there to catch whatever feelings I have or stories I need to tell. Whether it is to capture how confused I feel on one day or to capture random little moments of joy that I experienced that day. To me, what is special about this journal and its intention is that there is no expectation, no pressure to write well, to come to conclusions, and no intention to ever be shared with anyone else. This journal is a place to capture my essence, / the essence of my life. Since there's no pressure to write, there are definitely periods in my life that aren't represented by some late night scribbles. For example, on my birthday this year, I did some reflecting and I was craving to know how I felt a year ago. And it's moments like that, and then actually finding, for example, entries from a year ago that remind me of how fulfilling it is to be able to go back, to understand myself better, and to learn about myself, that sort of make me want to show up and capture my life in this journal. Let me just explain how I make it easy for me to write in this journal, resulting in me writing in it more often. What I do is I plan in 30 minutes of leeway in my night routine before I go to bed. So if I usually want to sleep at 10, I make sure I'm in bed at 9:30 so that if I want to write something, I can write something. And if I don't, no problem. I have more time to brush my dog, or I just sleep earlier. So that's how I make it sort of this effortless thing, and that still sort of embraces this no expectations sort of approach with this journal. Especially in the past 6 months, I wrote a lot more due to maybe making more time for it, but also I feel like I recognize that value of being able to go back, as I said. And I finished this journal. Like, how often have we finished journals in our life? Too little, right? I'm trying not to buy journals that I don't use. And that also goes along with my minimalism. But hey, that's another topic. It just feels amazing that I was able to finish a journal, which is definitely not the point, but it shows me that this is something important in my life, which is why I'm making a whole video about it. This is my newer one. This is Moleskin, this is Leuchtturm. They're both just a soft notebook with lines, which is what works great for me for this journal. So for a good part of my life, my bullet journal visualized my calendar, my thoughts, and my goals. But since evolving my whole life organization to be digital, it has slowly been losing its purpose. So recently, what was my bullet journal transformed into having one purpose, and that is being a space to seek mental clarity. This is the monthly reflection that changed my life. The chapters of my life that I felt least free were when I was avoiding something that I knew I had to address or I had to change, but I was afraid to face it, or I also didn't really know where to start with this. And I think the more I tried to ignore what I had to do or what I had to confront, the louder it got in my head and the more paralyzed in my action it rendered me. What journaling gives me is a way to stay in touch with myself, to break down this list of life projects I have, sort of things I want to work on, or maybe I don't want to work on them, but I know that I need to. My reflection and I, together, we can tackle each of these projects, thoughts, fears, step by step. So if I have something coming up that creates a lot of anxiety, I can find solace in these pages. And then once you've survived whatever you were fearing, and once you've triumphed, come out on the other side, you can express that on the same pages. So most importantly, in my opinion, to avoid having these thoughts gain too much power that they don't deserve, these fears, I believe that, as I mentioned earlier, the more we try to avoid these things, sort of the heavier they become or the louder they become. And in tackling that and in overcoming that, I believe we need to listen to ourselves and take note. And I think that is what journaling can give us, a space to take note. So this journal, for me, evolved into a space where I seek clarity on certain topics. In contrast to my quote-unquote off-the-rails journal, my bedside journal, I find it to be necessary to show up regularly and reflect on certain topics of my life. I found a rhythm that I can keep up with is sitting down once a month. And this creates a long-term tracking system of your headspace and your well-being, which aligns with your values. So here is how I recommend creating your own prompts for your monthly reflection. Step number 1 requires some reflection. And this is curating your own list of life topics / life aspects that you want to reflect on and show up for every single month. Now, what I realized is that in the beginning, you may start a bit broader and you may not really know what specific topics you want to elaborate on. So start simple. I realized that I was just writing so much about work and my relationship with work that I recognized this topic needs to be broken down into several subtopics. And I think sometimes that just takes some time. So don't overthink this too much, because that's definitely something I would do. Now, this practice sort of just happened naturally for me. It was just, I think, last year sometime where I just wrote about the month and then I recognized this is so powerful. And then I just continued showing up and sort of wrote about these topics. So step number 1, create your own list. And if you find yourself writing about something a lot, you can perhaps break that down. And then step 2 requires a bit of creativity, but it is worthwhile in my opinion, because it makes this whole practice a little more engaging, a little more fun, and maybe easier to show up for. And that is writing your topics / aspects into questions. And here again, you can keep it broad, simple, such as, how did this topic make me feel this month? Or how much energy did this topic give me? How much energy did this topic take for me? I never know where to start. That's why I started breaking everything down. And that's why I recommend you to write these topics into questions. I don't know how to slip through my fingers, but I thought I would add this segment here because for some reason I forgot a vital part of my reflection in my clarity journal / used to be bullet journal. And this is setting intentions each month. And these intentions are born out of my reflection on my life topics. And when I go back to even reflect, for example, it's June and I'm reflecting on May, what I look at from my May journal are mainly my intentions that I set for the month. And then I will implement that, how it worked out, into the topics. And then I will reformulate my intentions for the upcoming month. And this way I have a lot more clarity on what is going on in my life. And I'm constantly picking back up certain topics and certain intentions I had, and I can rework them. And this is sort of what I mean with staying in touch with myself, staying in touch with what I thought a month ago, and creating new intentions for moving forward. And then lastly, for this topic, I wanted to add that you don't have to approach making these prompts from the topics. You can also just start with random questions that you have. For example, if finance isn't something you necessarily want to elaborate on as a life aspect in your monthly reflection, but you have this one specific question that you want to track / answer every single month. For example, how much did I save this month? Or am I happy with my savings this month? You can add that as well. And your monthly reflection could start at that, just 10 questions you want to answer every single month. And I guarantee you it's going to give you probably the same amount of depth in the answers as when you start with these more, I guess, typical life topics. Honestly, this is really important for you to be specific about your life. And so I don't even want to give too many examples, because what serves you most is what you think about most, what you want to work on most, and honestly also what you fear most. So take that into consideration. As the last part of this video, I thought I would share some ways that I journal to support my mental health. The first way is actually during my monthly reflection. You can definitely have mental health be an overarching topic to encapsulate how you feel. For me, I break down the mental health topic into several different sort of more specific topics that I'd like to reflect on. So this could be focusing on only anxiety, on my identity, on self-esteem, on self-love, on confidence, on, for example, specific relationship dynamics. And I mean, you can be as specific as you want and really cater this to you. I would say that this is definitely the biggest section during my monthly reflection, making it also one of the most important aspects for why I want to show up every single month. Another practice I have is writing affirmations, which is a part of my process of reframing unhealthy beliefs. An easy way I implement this in my journaling is that I usually end an entry with positive affirmations. I find that affirmations are most powerful when they truly apply to our lives. This means that if you can extract from your journaling what you need to hear to feel that you are moving in the right direction, you can curate affirmations that help change your beliefs for the better. To me, the goal when journaling for mental health is not to come to conclusions. I think this is something I tried to do in the past, but more about understanding yourself better and also just self-awareness. A lot of times during this practice is when questions come up. Questions that can be worked with further, for example, can be integrated as next month's prompts or just specific question you want to journal on. But this practice also helps me recognize those important questions that I can't find answers to myself. And this is when I would take them to a therapist. And I think this is a healthy practice to recognize when has self-reflection reached its limit. That's something I'm definitely still learning. On top of being a way to reflect and to improve myself, journaling to me is celebrating life in its tragedy and deep joy. Writing with yourself and about your life is the pursuit of understanding yourself and the world better through words. For me, this pursuit has changed the way I live, added texture and perspective. I journal to create accountability for my dreams and who I aspire to be tomorrow. I feel like I'm supported by all my preceding versions of me, as well as me today, who put in the effort to understand how I can feel the way I dream of feeling.